welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're trying to cut through some of that corporate fog, specifically around stakeholder conversations.
That word stakeholders. It can definitely make you pause, can't it?
Yeah, you know that feeling like you hear stakeholders and this little alarm bell rings, maybe? Like you're supposed to know something important, but it's all a bit fuzzy.
It often feels intentionally vague, I think. It covers so many people. Sometimes it feels like it covers no one specifically, just this cloud of expectation.
Exactly. So our mission today, and we're drawing from that gem, episode 106, How to Pretend You Know What Stakeholders Are Talking About, is to give you some, well, practical tools.
Tools to navigate these chats with maybe a bit more confidence, less confusion, hopefully.
Right. We're going to unpack three types of, let's call it, stakeholder nonsense you might run into.
The vague, the hostile,
Yeah.
and the maybe not so real ones.
And we'll look at things like the strategic, and decoding phrases like looping in legal.
By the end, you should have a much better handle on what might really be going on behind the jargon.
Okay, so let's dive in. Source material breaks it down nicely. First up, type 1, the vague.
Ah, yes. The classic here is something like, the stakeholders have concerns.
Concerns. So broad, right? And according to the episode, this often just means, what? Like someone somewhere is maybe a little bit irritated.
Pretty much, or mildly annoyed. It's often not this huge wave of negativity, it sounds like. It can be just a ripple someone's noticed.
Why do you think people use such vague language then? Is it just avoiding confrontation?
I think that's part of it, yeah. Sometimes maybe they don't know the specifics yet themselves, or they want to flag something gently, test the waters.
But it leaves you hanging, doesn't it?
Totally. And that's where the suggested response comes in. It's quite clever.
Which is? Remind me.
It's, let's pressure test that.
Pressure test that. Okay. And the secret meaning behind that is?
Basically. I also have no clue what you're really talking about, but let's sound like we're doing something.
Okay. So it sounds proactive.
Exactly. It sounds like you're taking it seriously, engaging with it, but it also subtly puts the ball back in their court, you know?
How so?
Well, it prompts them. If they brought up the vague concern, saying, let's pressure test it, implies you need more info from them to do that testing.
Got it. Buys you time, makes them clarify, if they can.
Right. If they can't, well, maybe the concern wasn't that solid to begin with.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to type 2, the hostile. This sounds more intense.
Yeah, the temperature definitely goes up here. The phrase to listen for is something like, stakeholders are very passionate about this.
Passionate. Again, sounds almost positive, but I'm guessing it's not.
Usually not, no. In this context, passionate is often code for, well, angry, possibly really angry.
Like the source says, they will email your boss in all cap yes, angry.
That's the kind of energy it's signaling, yeah. Strong opposition, high stakes, not just mild annoyance anymore.
So why not just say, they're really angry, why passionate?
It's corporate speak, isn't it? It softens the edge slightly in the room, sounds a bit more professional than people are furious. But the warning is clear.
Okay, warning received. So, if you hear passionate, what's the recommended survival strategy?
The suggested line is, understood, let me socialize some options.
Socialize some options. Okay, and the hidden meaning?
The source hilariously translates this as, I need to hide for a week.
Okay, so it's another delaying tactic.
It is, but a slightly different flavor. Socializing options sounds collaborative, like you're going to talk to people, gather ideas, find solutions.
Which you might do, eventually.
We might, but mostly it gives you breathing room. Time to figure out how serious the passion is, maybe build some support for a compromise before you have to face the music directly.
A strategic pause, then. Makes sense. All right, third type. This one's intriguing. Type 3, the imaginary.
Yes, the imaginary stakeholder.
How does this one pop up? What's the phrase?
It often starts with something like, per stakeholder feedback, or based on what we're hearing from stakeholders.
Okay, sounds legit. But the potential twist is?
The potential twist is that feedback might not actually exist, or it's heavily exaggerated. Maybe it's just what that person wants, and they're attributing it to this vague stakeholder group to give it more weight.
So basically, I made this up to get my way.
Can be that, yeah. Or maybe they heard one comment once and are blowing it way out of proportion. The point is, the feedback source is fuzzy.
Why does this work? Why can people just invoke these mystery stakeholders?
Because stakeholders is often so ill-defined, like we said. Who are they really? It's hard to pin down. So claiming you have their feedback is hard to disprove immediately. It's a bit of a power move.
Sneaky. So how do you counter this? The source suggests.
A simple, polite, but effective response. Great point. Let's document that.
Let's document that. Translation. Show me the proof.
Exactly. It's asking for evidence without being confrontational. Where did this feedback come from? Can we see it? Let's make a note of it.
How well does that work usually?
It can be quite effective. If the feedback is real, documenting it is logical. If it's less than real, it puts the person on the spot. They might backtrack or suddenly find the feedback isn't easily available.
Okay. Introduces accountability. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that listener story too, wasn't there? About the stakeholder rant.
Oh, yeah, that was brilliant. Someone sat through like a 30-minute meeting about stakeholder concerns, this big dramatic thing.
Only to find out later.
It was literally just one guy in Nebraska who didn't like a proposed change. He was a stakeholder technically, but the way it was presented made it sound like a huge uprising.
Wow. That really drives home how the term can be inflated, doesn't it?
Definitely. Always worth asking which stakeholders specifically, even if just in your own head.
Okay, so we've got the types. Vague, hostile, imaginary. Now, what about when we're the ones feeling lost? How do we bluff our way through?
The art of appearing competent when you're maybe paddling furiously under the surface. The source has some tricks.
Lay them on me. Trick number 1.
The repeat with a question trick.
Okay, how does that work? Example.
So someone drops some jargon on you like, we need to address the synergy gaps with stakeholders.
Right. Synergy gaps might mean anything.
Exactly. So your response is to repeat the key term and ask for specifics. Synergy gaps. How are we quantifying those?
Ooh, nice. So you sound engaged, you use their term.
And you buy yourself a few seconds while they have to explain it. Plus, you might actually learn what they mean.
Clever. Okay, trick 2.
The jargon volley. This is where you fight fire with fire, essentially.
Using buzzwords back at them?
Kind of. The example given is fantastic. Let's pressure test the low-hanging fruit before we boil the ocean.
Chuckles. Does that actually mean anything coherent?
Probably not if you analyze it too closely, but it sounds like it does, right? It uses familiar corporate phrases.
Low-hanging fruit, boil the ocean, pressure test.
Yeah, okay. The idea is tossing out a volley of jargon like that can make you sound like you're on their level, even if you're just trying to keep the conversation moving without revealing you're lost.
A bit risky, maybe. What if they call your bluff?
It's possible, yeah. Use with caution. But sometimes it's enough to just blend in.
Okay. And the third tactic?
The fake alignment nod. This one's probably familiar to many.
This is just nodding and saying,
Pretty much, but with words. Saying things like, totally see where you're coming from, or yeah, that makes sense, even if internally you're thinking, what on earth are they talking about?
So pretending to agree or understand when you don't.
It's about maintaining connection, really, not disrupting the flow by saying, I'm lost. It keeps things smooth, gives you more time to try and catch up. It's a social lubricant.
Okay. And the ultimate escape hatch. The pro tip.
The eject button. If you're really cornered, feeling the pressure, the magic phrase is, let me sync with my counterparts on that.
Translation, please stop asking me this.
Exactly. I need to get out of this conversation right now. It sounds professional, suggests collaboration.
But really, it just defers the question, buys you a longer escape.
Precisely. A very useful tool for the corporate toolkit.
Okay, these are gold. Now, the source also mentioned stakeholder bingo phrases, like common things you hear and their real meanings.
Yeah, recognizing these can be like having a secret decoder ring for meetings.
All right, give me the first one. What's on the bingo card?
Okay, phrase 1, we need buy-in.
We need buy-in. Sounds collaborative. But the translation is?
Often it means, nobody agrees with me yet, and I need help convincing them. Or, I haven't actually asked anyone if they support this.
Right. It flags a lack of agreement, not the start of collaboration.
Exactly. Next phrase.
Hit me.
Phrase 2. Let's take this offline.
Oh, I hear this one a lot. Seems sensible, right? Take a complex issue aside.
It can be sensible, but often the subtext is, this conversation is going off the rails, or this is turning into a dumpster fire and we need to contain it.
Okay. So less about focus, more about damage control sometimes.
Can be, yeah. Or dealing with something too contentious for the main group.
All right. One more bingo phrase.
Phrase 3. Let's keep this a high-level discussion.
High level. Sounds strategic. Big picture thinking.
It can mean that. Or it can mean, I really don't know the details, so please don't ask me any specific questions.
Avoidance through altitude.
You could put it that way. It keeps things vague, prevents getting bogged down in specifics the speaker might not actually know.
Okay, this is illuminating and slightly terrifying.
Knowledge is power.
True. There was also a listener hack mentioned. Something about fake names.
Oh, yeah, this was bold. A listener apparently keeps a list of made-up stakeholder names.
Made up, like completely fictional.
Yep. And then they might drop one into conversation like, well, per Deb in procurement, or Greg from compliance raised this.
No way. Does that actually work?
Apparently, it adds this air of specificity and authority, makes it sound like you've done your homework and consulted widely, even if Deb doesn't exist.
That takes some guts. I'm not sure I could pull that off.
Me neither. But it's a fascinating example of playing the game, isn't it?
Definitely. Okay, so to wrap things up, the source throws down a challenge for us listeners, right? The Stakeholder Spy Challenge.
Yeah, time to put this knowledge into action. A few mini missions for your next work week.
Mission 1.
Spot one meaningless stakeholder reference. Just notice it. Someone says, as per the steering committee, or stakeholder feedback suggests, and you just internally flag it. Recognize the pattern.
Okay, just observation. Sharpening the senses. Mission 2.
Try deploying the jargon volley. Maybe not the full boil the ocean thing unless you're feeling brave.
Maybe start smaller.
Yeah. But try weaving in some plausible sounding jargon. The source suggests bonus points for using bandwidth constraints.
Bandwidth constraints. Noted. Use with caution, obviously.
Always. And mission 3.
Let me guess. Invent a stakeholder.
You got it. Come up with your own Deb from procurement or Greg from compliance. You don't necessarily have to use it in a meeting, but just thinking one up gets you into that mindset, understanding how these references function. Maybe Sheila in strategy feels strongly about this.
Okay, I could do that. It's all about understanding the dynamics, right?
Exactly, and maybe having a little fun with it.
The source did have that cautionary tale, though. The hashtag stakeholder prism.
Right. The example was someone saying stakeholders want more granularity.
Granularity, another classic.
And the result, being forced to create some massive, hyper-detailed spreadsheet that probably no one will ever actually read.
Ugh, stakeholder prison indeed. A place we want to avoid.
Hopefully these decoding skills help with that.
So, summing up then, we've dug into the often murky world of stakeholder talk, drawing on episode 106.
We've looked at the vague, the hostile, the imaginary. We've got some bluffing tactics.
And some bingo phrases to watch out for. You should feel, hopefully, a bit more empowered now, or at least better prepared.
A key thing to remember is that a lot of this language is about managing perceptions, signaling things indirectly, maybe buying time. It's not always about pure information transfer.
Understanding that code is half the battle.
Definitely.
So the final thought from the source. Go forth and align.
Or, at least look like you're aligning until happy hour.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks for breaking this down.
My pleasure.
And join us next time for another deep dive. We'll be tackling something maybe even more challenging. How to explain your job to your parents without them thinking you do nothing.
Oh, that's a big one. Looking forward to it.